The sun hung low over Summit Auto, casting a golden hue across the gleaming luxury cars parked neatly in front of the dealership. The massive glass windows reflected the Denver skyline, making the entire building look as polished and expensive as the vehicles inside. It was a place built for the elite, an establishment where image and prestige mattered just as much as the horsepower beneath the hood. Ronnie pulled into the lot, driving a modest, slightly worn SUV, parking it in an unmarked spot away from the main entrance. Unlike the customers Summit Auto usually catered to, men in tailored suits and women in designer handbags, he stepped out in a simple gray hoodie, faded jeans, and a pair of well-worn sneakers. His hands tucked casually into his pockets, he took a moment to scan the dealership, watching as employees laughed and chatted near the entrance, completely unaware of his presence. That was exactly how he wanted it. Ronnie was not just any customer. He was the new owner of this prestigious dealership, but no one inside knew that yet. He had recently acquired Summit Auto and was keen on understanding its culture, unfiltered and unscripted. He had no interest in grand introductions or formal meetings. What he wanted was the truth. Would the staff treat every customer with the same level of respect and professionalism, or would they judge people based on appearance alone? Taking a deep breath, he stepped through the glass doors into the air-conditioned showroom. Inside, everything screamed exclusivity. The scent of polished leather mixed with fresh wax, and the floor gleamed under the bright overhead lights. Rows of pristine vehicles, each with a price tag that could rival a small house, stood like trophies waiting for the right kind of buyer. Ronnie moved through the space slowly, his gaze drifting from car to car. He reached out, letting his fingers graze the sleek surface of a metallic silver coupe, feeling the coolness of the freshly polished paint under his touch. A moment later, he heard the unmistakable sound of heels clicking against the polished floor. "Excuse me, sir." He turned to see Luca, the dealership's senior sales manager, approaching with a clipboard clutched tightly against her side. She was a sharp-dressed woman in her mid-40s, exuding an air of confidence that came with years of experience. Her tailored blazer, crisp white shirt, and polished heels told a story of professionalism, but the slight downturn of her lips suggested skepticism. "Can I help you with something?" she asked, her voice smooth but detached. Ronnie smiled. "Just looking around." Her eyes flicked over him, scanning his attire. The hoodie, the sneakers, the relaxed posture. The polite smile on her lips tightened ever so slightly, and in that split second, Ronnie knew exactly what she was thinking. "Are you looking for something specific?" she continued, her tone now slightly guarded. Ronnie gestured toward the coupe beside him. "This one caught my eye." Luca hesitated, her fingers adjusting the clipboard in her hands. Then, with a well-practiced air of subtle condescension, she said, "Well, this particular model starts at a six-figure price point." Ronnie arched an eyebrow, suppressing the smirk threatening to form. "Is that a problem?" Luca's response was almost instant. "Not at all, but if budget is a concern, we have a great selection of pre-owned vehicles that might be more—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Accessible." There it was. Ronnie let the silence stretch for a beat, then tilted his head slightly. "You think I can't afford it?" Luca blinked, then let out a small, practiced laugh. "Oh, no, of course not. I just try to make recommendations based on what might be the best fit for each customer." Ronnie simply nodded, his expression unreadable. He had seen enough. This was going to be interesting. Ronnie stood in the middle of Summit Auto's luxury showroom, his hands casually tucked into the pockets of his hoodie. The air inside was cool, crisp, carrying the faint scent of leather and polished chrome. Around him, sleek cars stood proudly under the bright lights, waiting for the right kind of customer to appreciate their value. Yet, at this moment, Ronnie wasn't just another potential buyer. He was a test that Luca had already failed. The senior sales manager, dressed in her sharp blazer and polished heels, watched him carefully. Though her expression remained professional, her body language betrayed her true thoughts. She had already made her assumption, categorized him based on his appearance, and subtly directed him toward something more suitable. Ronnie let the moment linger before he finally spoke. "So you're saying this car isn't for me?" Luca gave him a tight-lipped smile, shifting her weight slightly. No, I'm just trying to help. Some of these vehicles require pre-qualification before we can proceed with a serious inquiry. Her tone remained polite, but there was no mistaking the edge of doubt woven into her words. Pre-qualification? Ronnie repeated, feigning curiosity. Luca nodded, clearly believing she was doing him a favor. Yes, many of our customers go through a process to ensure they're looking at vehicles within their range. Ronnie chuckled softly, shaking his head. That's interesting. I didn't realize you could tell a person's range just by looking at them. For the first time, Luca's confidence wavered. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face, but she quickly masked it with another polished smile. It's just about making sure we provide the best experience for every customer. Ronnie held her gaze for a moment before glancing at the clipboard she clutched like a shield. And what experience are you offering me, exactly? Luca's fingers tightened around the clipboard. I just think it's better to be realistic. If you're serious about purchasing a vehicle, I'd be happy to direct you to some models that might be a better fit. Ronnie tilted his head slightly, his lips pressing into a faint, unreadable smile. A better fit, he echoed, rolling the words around his tongue. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. A few other employees had taken notice, their eyes flicking toward the exchange. Some whispered to each other, curious about the man in the hoodie who seemed far too calm for someone being subtly dismissed. Luca, sensing the growing attention, squared her shoulders. Look, sir, I don't mean any offense, she said smoothly. I've been in this industry a long time, and I can usually tell when someone is out of their depth. Ah, there it was. Ronnie exhaled lightly, letting the words settle in the space between them. Then, with deliberate ease, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Luca's brows knitted together as she watched him scroll through his contacts. What are you doing? Ronnie didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lifted the phone to his ear and turned slightly away. Hey, it's me, he said casually into the receiver. Yeah, I'm at the dealership. Everything's fine, just a little misunderstanding. Can you let them know I'm here? Silence. Luca's posture stiffened. Who are you calling? She asked, her voice quieter now. Ronnie didn't answer. He simply ended the call, slipped his phone back into his pocket, and turned to face her again. They'll be here shortly, he said. The subtle authority in his voice sent a ripple through the showroom. Luca swallowed, her clipboard lowering slightly as uncertainty crept into her expression. Something had shifted. A few employees in the background exchanged glances, their whispers growing. The once assured sales manager suddenly found herself standing in unfamiliar territory. The atmosphere grew thick with anticipation, and for the first time that day, Luca didn't feel in control. Luca's confidence had been unshakable just moments ago, but now, as she stood there gripping her clipboard a little too tightly, she could feel the air shifting around her. The man in the hoodie, the one she had so quickly dismissed, had just made a call, and whoever was on the other end was important. The once bussy showroom had grown noticeably quieter. Conversations had slowed, and employees subtly stole glances toward the unfolding scene. Even some customers seemed to sense that something was about to happen. Luca, however, still held onto the last shred of control she believed she had. Mister, she trailed off, realizing she hadn't even bothered to ask for his name. Ronnie, he supplied simply, his expression unreadable. Luca forced a tight smile. Mr. Ronnie, I don't know who you just called, but if you're waiting for someone, you're welcome to do so outside. We have other customers to attend to. Ronnie arched an eyebrow but said nothing. He merely crossed his arms and glanced toward the main entrance. And then it happened. The large glass doors swung open, and Owen, the dealership's regional manager, walked in with purpose. Dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, he moved with the unmistakable air of someone in charge. His gaze scanned the room before locking onto Ronnie, and the instant his eyes met the man in the hoodie, his entire demeanor shifted. A wide smile spread across Owen's face as he closed the distance in seconds. Mr. Carter, he greeted, extending his hand, his tone one of warmth and respect. I didn't expect you to drop by today. The room went still. Luca's face paled. Mr. Carter. Her breath caught as realization dawned, crashing into her like a tidal wave. The man she had dismissed, subtly belittled and tried to redirect toward cheaper options, wasn't just some casual window shopper. He was the new owner of Summit Auto. Ronnie shook Owen's hand firmly, his expression remaining calm. "Thought I'd stop by, see how things were running." Owen let out a short laugh, oblivious to the silent chaos happening inside Luca's mind. "Well, I hope the team here has been treating you well?" Ronnie's gaze flickered toward Luca, his lips curving just slightly. "It's been interesting." Owen, finally sensing something beneath the surface, turned his attention to Luca. "Oh," he said, his tone shifting into something more serious. "I see you already met Mr. Carter." Luca opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her fingers clenched around her clipboard as the weight of the situation sank in. "I didn't realize," she stammered, the confident saleswoman from earlier nowhere to be found. Owen frowned slightly, looking between the two of them. "Did we have a problem?" Ronnie let the question hang for a beat before responding. "Not a problem," he said lightly, his voice carrying a quiet authority that sent a shiver down Luca's spine. "More of a misunderstanding." Owen's expression darkened slightly, sensing there was more to the story. "Luca," he said, turning to her, his voice expectant. Luca's mind raced. How had this happened? She had spent years building her reputation in sales. She'd prided herself on being able to read people instantly. And yet, she had completely misjudged the one person she should have impressed the most. "I didn't know," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Ronnie tilted his head slightly. "And if you had known?" The question cut deeper than she expected, because the truth was, if she had known, everything would have been different. Her tone, her attention, her entire approach. But wasn't that the problem? Silence stretched between them until Owen cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should move this conversation somewhere more private." Ronnie nodded. "I think that's a good idea." As the three of them made their way toward the conference room, Luca followed behind, her face burning with humiliation. This was no longer just about a single sale. It was about everything she thought she knew and how wrong she had been. The conference room at Summit Auto was designed to impress. Floor-to-ceiling glass windows, a polished mahogany table, and sleek leather chairs that screamed authority. But today, despite its elegance, the air inside felt stifling. Every employee in the room knew something had happened, and now they were about to find out exactly what. Ronnie stood at the head of the table, hands in his pockets, his expression calm yet unreadable. Across from him sat Luca, the sales manager who had unknowingly dismissed and judged the very man now leading this meeting. Her usual sharp confidence had been replaced with nervous silence. She was painfully aware of the stares directed her way, but she kept her gaze fixed on the clipboard in her lap, as if avoiding eye contact might somehow undo the last 30 minutes. Owen, the regional manager, remained near the door, arms crossed, observing the scene unfold. His face betrayed nothing, but those who knew him well could tell he wasn't pleased. Ronnie finally broke the silence. "Thank you all for joining me on such short notice." His voice was even, controlled, not angry, not accusatory, just firm. "For those of you who don't know, my name is Ronnie Carter, and as of last month, I'm the new owner of Summit Auto." A few quiet murmurs rippled through the group, but no one dared speak too loudly. Ronnie let the words settle before continuing. "I came in today dressed the way I did for a reason. I wanted to see how this dealership operates when no one knows I'm watching, and what I experienced was disappointing." Luca shifted uncomfortably in her seat, the weight of the statement pressing down on her. Ronnie's eyes scanned the room, making sure every employee understood this wasn't just about one person, this was about culture. "Let me be clear," he continued. "This isn't just about a single interaction, it's about how we treat people. Every customer who walks through that door deserves respect, whether they come in wearing a three-piece suit or a hoodie and sneakers." The tension in the room thickened. Some employees nodded in agreement, while others sat uncomfortably, as if Ronnie's words were unraveling their own past interactions. "I understand that we all make assumptions, that's human nature," Ronnie admitted. But when those assumptions affect how we treat people, when they dictate who gets excellent service and who gets brushed aside, then we have a problem. He let the words linger, then turned his attention directly to Luca. Luca, would you have treated me any differently today if I had walked in wearing a tailored suit? A heavy silence fell. Luca opened her mouth, then closed it. The truth was painfully obvious, and everyone in the room knew it. Finally, she exhaled, her voice quieter than usual. Yes, I probably would have. Ronnie nodded, as if he had expected that answer. And that's exactly why we're having this conversation. He turned back to the rest of the team. This dealership has built a reputation for excellence, but excellence isn't just about the cars we sell, it's about the way we treat people. Moving forward, things will change. That starts today. A murmur of quiet agreement rippled through the room. Some employees seemed relieved, others looked uncertain. Luca, however, looked like she was carrying the weight of her own mistake. "Luca?" Ronnie said, his voice softer now. "I don't believe in humiliating people. I believe in giving them the chance to grow. So, I'll ask you, what do you think we need to do to make this right?" Luca swallowed hard, gathering her thoughts. She met Ronnie's gaze for the first time since the meeting started and said, "We need to change the way we see our customers, the way we see people." Ronnie nodded. "That's a good start." As the meeting wrapped up, the weight in the room slowly lifted. The employees were no longer just witnessing a lesson in leadership, they were part of it. And Luca? She wasn't just going to be a better sales manager. She was going to be a better person. The atmosphere in the showroom had changed. It was subtle but undeniable, a ripple effect from the meeting that had just concluded. Employees moved with a newfound awareness, conversations carried a different weight, and there was a shared understanding that things at Summit Auto would not be the same. Ronnie stepped back out onto the showroom floor, his hands still casually tucked into his hoodie pockets. He wasn't expecting an overnight transformation, real change takes time. But he knew that today had been a pivotal moment, one that had forced everyone to take a hard look at the way they operated. His gaze drifted to Luca, who stood near the front desk, staring down at her clipboard. She wasn't reviewing figures or customer lists this time. She was reflecting. The confident sales manager who once relied on instinct to judge customers had been given a reality check, and it was one she wouldn't soon forget. Taking a deep breath, Luca squared her shoulders and walked toward him. There was no hesitation this time, no forced professionalism, just sincerity. "Mr. Carter," she started, but then quickly corrected herself. "Ronnie." He turned to face her fully, waiting. She hesitated, then spoke. "I just wanted to say I appreciate the opportunity to do better. I was wrong to make assumptions, and I know it's going to take more than just words to prove that I've learned from today." Ronnie studied her for a moment before offering a small nod. "Actions speak louder than words, Luca. What matters isn't just that you made a mistake, it's what you do about it now." She nodded in agreement, her grip on her clipboard tightening slightly. "I get that, and I want to do better." Ronnie's expression softened. "Then start now." Almost as if on cue, the glass doors swung open and a new customer walked in. He was young, dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans, his sneakers slightly worn. He carried himself with quiet confidence, but the way he glanced around the room made it clear he wasn't sure he belonged here. "How potential is it?" It was a scene almost identical to what had happened earlier that day. And this time Luca had a choice. Ronnie watched as she took a deep breath and walked straight toward the young man. Not with hesitation, not with skepticism, but with the kind of respect that every customer deserved. "Welcome to Summit Auto," she said, offering a genuine smile. "How can I help you today?" The young man blinked, momentarily surprised at the warm greeting, but then relaxed. "I was just looking," he admitted, his tone cautious. Luca nodded, her demeanor open and professional. "Take your time, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help." Ronnie observed from a distance, a small but satisfied smile tugging at the corners of his lips. This was why he had come today. Not to test, not to punish, but to lead by example. He had seen enough. As he turned toward the exit, Owen fell into step beside him. "That was quite the lesson," Owen remarked, glancing back toward the showroom floor. Ronnie exhaled a quiet chuckle. "Sometimes people don't need to be told what's wrong, they just need to see the right way to do things." Owen nodded, respect evident in his expression. "You think she'll keep it up?" Ronnie didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced back once more, just in time to see Luca leading the young customer toward one of the high-end models, treating him with the same level of professionalism she would have given anyone else. He turned back to Owen and gave a knowing nod. "I think she's already started." With that, he stepped out into the crisp evening air, leaving behind a dealership that, in just one day, had already begun to change for the better. In today's world, we often judge others by their appearance, forgetting that true value lies in how they act and treat those around them. The story of Ronnie and Summit Auto reminds us that respect should not be based on clothing or status, but should come from sincerity. Whether in work or life, if we set aside prejudice, listen more, and observe carefully, we not only create a positive environment, but also open up new opportunities both in business and personal relationships.